It is 10 minutes to 7. Good to have you with us this morning. So today marks 32 years since Nelson Mandela was released from Robben Island. His granddaughter, Queenie Mandela, joins Ian, Jackie, Kate and myself this morning. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Lovely to meet you too. Thank you.
I know you're here because you're part of a campaign which is hopefully a means of educating us Brits and people about maybe lesser-known figures in black history. Before we come on to the campaign, we'd love to talk a little bit about your grandfather because he is, I think Jackie's already said, the most inspirational person in her political career. We all admired and enjoyed and followed his life from afar. What was he like as a granddad?
He was wonderful. My grandfather had a really great sense of humour. And he obviously came out of prison when his children were grown adults and they were, married with children. And then he came out of prison when we were grown adults. I was 19 when he was... it was my last year of high school, actually, when he was released. So on the day he was released, my mum and I were going out, and then as we stepped out of our apartment, there was a press ward there. And they said to us, "Where are you guys going?" And we said, "We're going out." And my mum said, "What are you guys doing here?" And they said, "Your father is being released from prison today."
Wow.
And we all ran upstairs. We knew that he was being released at some point, but we didn't know that it was specifically that day. So we ran upstairs and we went to watch the TV. And it was the first time that I actually saw my mum cry, because my mum doesn't cry. It was just really emotional. I had seen my grandfather twice before in prison. But, as an 8-year-old, you don't really keep a sense of what your grandparent looks like when you see them twice. So when we saw him walk out of the prison standing proud and tall, it was just really surreal and emotional for us.
Of course.
And my siblings and I were just really excited because we'd heard him talked about as a legend in the family. You hear about the myth of Nelson Mandela in the family.
You're growing up with this almost mythical grandfather that was so admired and going through something so awful. How was it explained to you initially, his absence, and did you understand the gravitas, I guess?
I don't think you really understand. No. The first time my grandmother started talking about, where I had a sense of who he was, I was about seven years old.
Yeah.
But you don't really get a sense, right? And then you get excited as a child. I remember going to school and saying to my friends, my grandfather is Nelson Mandela, and they were like, really? Like, really, it's not a good thing to lie. But,
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so...
Did you know Winston Churchill is Jackie's father?
So eventually, were you ever able to sort of turn around? Because I'd love to have gone back sort of 15 years later to those same kids that said to Queenie, yeah, of course he is. And then say, no, look, he really is my granddad.
No, when I was at university, some of them, because my grandfather was going to a visit to Cape Town, they ran up to him and they said, Tata, we know Queenie. And my grandfather was like, you do, really?
They got it back!
I was like, yes! I was vindicated.
He was... Jackie, just explain a little bit, because, throughout your political career, as you've already said, he was such an extraordinary figure. You didn't actually get to meet him, though, did you?
No, but for people of my political generation and sort of colour, he was the international campaign against apartheid was the sort of international inspiring campaign of my sort of youth and early years in politics. And then when your grandfather left prison, the way in which he responded in leading South Africa in a way that tried to put behind what must have been, in one way, he could have descended into bitterness, he could have descended into conflict, but he chose to bring the country together and lead it in such an inspirational way. So in both of those ways, I think he's inspiring to so many people across the world.
The way and for you, how has that translated into your passions?
So I think that, I had a talk, I think it was on Wednesday, to a group of, corporate leaders, and I was saying to them that, the ideals that my grandfather espoused didn't just come out of nowhere. He learned them from someone and from somewhere. So, we are descendants of someone who was called King Ngubenguka. He was king of the Tembu Nation, and he formed the Tembu Nation out of different groups of people from all walks of life. So diversity is ingrained in our DNA. My grandfather's father was a prime minister of sorts to the Tembu Nation in his time. And when there was a crisis there, you know, everybody said, oh, no, you must choose the most obvious person. He said, well, the most obvious person is not equipped to be a good leader. We must choose from a lesser house. So he didn't believe in maintaining the status quo at all. He believed that maintaining the status quo was an enemy to progress. So all those values have been passed down from one generation to the other in my family. And, you know, we're global citizens. My grandparents and my parents wanted that for us. So, you know, we grew up living in different countries. So that type of, those ideals are things that are part of who we are as a family.
And you are focused on what you think is the lack of proper Black history education in schools. Yeah. I mean, for a long time, I think many people would say there hasn't been enough history generally. Yeah. What is missing? What needs to be done? So
I'm doing this really beautiful project with SNAP and with the Black Cultural Archives to talk about forgotten Black heroes. And I think it's really, really beautiful because I myself don't know about all of them, for example. I think that we always look at a little part of their lives as individuals, but we don't understand that there were all these other people behind them who were doing all of this work, right? So for me, those are forgotten Black heroes. And we don't have the full story of who they were as human beings. So I think that's quite important. For example, I didn't know that Queen Charlotte was from a mixed-race heritage. I didn't know that there were Black Romans, for example. I didn't know that there were Black Tudors. So it just encouraged me to learn more about Black history in general. And I think it's not just a job of Black people to talk about Black history. It's the job of all of us to be inclusive. And I think that's how you build really healthy societies. And I think that's what my grandfather stood for. That's what we stand for as a family, and that's what I stand for.
And the campaign's based around Trafalgar Square, isn't it? I mean,
it's based around London Trafalgar Square, and it's an AR.
So it's all very
project.
Interactive.
Yes, very interactive. And there's a statue of my grandfather there, and it's a permanent statue. So, you know, it's just a really, really great program to enable, to educate people. But also, Snapchat has 250 million users, and most of those users are young people. So it's a great platform to educate people where they are.
Oh, well, we could hear you talk all day, but it's fascinating to hear your stories, and the campaign sounds amazing.
Share some of those amazing memories.
Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ian, Jackie, thank you as well for joining us.
Now, still to come, share all the making.